and his father was Mary Queen of Scots' right-hand man at the Battle of Langside that she was running away from. So it makes logical that he'd bring her to an abbey that still had monks in, because he was only 8 years after the Reformation. So a lot of the country is still very strong Catholic.
What a nice setting.
It's lovely, yeah. Look at leading down to the river, where they would have got all the stones from when they built the place.
Going to be buried somewhere like this. Well, hello everybody. Dan and I are here at Dundrennan Abbey. This is an historic Scotland site. We are English Heritage members and you can get in any of the historic sites for free because we've been members for more than a year. If you join English Heritage during your first year of membership, you're entitled to half price off any historic Scotland admission fees, but after a year you can come and have a look round for free. Of course, like English Heritage, sometimes there's no charge anyway. Now, a few facts about Dundrennan Abbey. It's quite close to Kirkudbright, spelt Kirkudbright but pronounced Kirkudbright. It was a Cistercian monastery in a Romanesque architectural style, established in 1142 by Fergus of Galloway, King David I of Scotland and monks from Reformation Abbey. Though extensively ruined, Dundrennan is noted for the purity and restraint of its architecture, reflecting the austere Cistercian ideal. It's also built from very hard weathering grey sandstone as opposed to the typical red stone of the Dumfries area, so the original architectural forms and mouldings are well preserved. So let's go and have a look round. This is where Mary Queen of Scots spent her last hours on Scottish soil. For centuries the monks kept up a daily cycle of worship here. They were assisted by lay brothers. These were members of the monastery who were not monks, but they grew crops and tended sheep in the surrounding fields, generating huge profits from the wool selling. Like Sweetheart Abbey, Dundrennan Abbey was damaged extensively during the Wars of Independence. The west front is late 12th century. On your left is evidence of a doorway into the north aisle of the nave. This was a porch where you're standing. It was covered by a lean-to or pent roof which sloped down from projecting stones above. The porch extended across the whole of the west front. An abbey was a sacred place and therefore ideal for burial. Most gravestones at Dundrennan today post-date the Reformation, when the abbey fell from use, but a few are earlier. The four displayed here have been moved from their original positions but are particularly interesting.
This was, we believe, this is Cistercian. It was the third one to be chartered in Scotland, and so this is most likely the oldest remains of the Cistercian Abbey you'll see in Scotland. The first was Melrose, which was only chartered 6 years before this, so they'd have still been building. But Melrose has had fires, so the oldest part of that has largely been rebuilt. The second one is south of Edinburgh, called New Battle, and all that remains is a crypt. And there is a big manse house on top of it, which is our college. So unless you're going to a function or you're going to be at the college, you're not going to see the crypt. So therefore, this is the the most complete and oldest that you probably see.
That's very kind of you.
We believe it was David I who had brought the Cistercians here, David I of Scotland, but he would have done it with Fergus, Lord of Galloway's approval. Galloway was independent at the time, so And it also the Cistercians would have wanted to come here because it was wild, and they liked everything. They just wanted to pray, work. They didn't want any distractions, and they liked to tame places to make them. They brought economy in because they brought sheep farming in. They liked to make it all wonderful. That would have helped Fergus rule it, brought money into the army for him. He'd have also had the prestige of saying, I have given, this land and this, and also it would have helped him on the way to heaven. Because that was And for David, it put his stamp on what religion he wanted Galloway to be, which then helped annex it towards Scotland. So it was kind of win-win. It would have been one of the finest abbeys in Scotland. It was very well off. It had a lot of land. It had land in Ireland. And they were breaking it, really. It was really busy. At its heyday, it would have been packed. They would have had. You were only really meant to have like 60 monks in an abbey, but and then they were meant to go on to another. But if there hadn't been another one asked for or chartered, to build, then you would have more, maybe. So in its heyday, it would have had at least 60 choir monks, the ones who took the orders, and the lay brothers, the ones who wanted the monastic life but didn't take the orders, the ones who went out and did the work and came back for the evening service. You could have had 100 or 200.
Wow.
So even though it was a silent order, there would have been so much hustle
That's
and bustle,
enormous.
Yeah, it is. It's it's just in the middle of kind of nowhere. You have this thing that's really busy and hustly, and it would have, because it would have been bigger, because it would have gone more over that way.
Yes.
You'll see as you walk around, there's a little archway there. You would have had a kitchen, refectory, infirmary. You would have had the lay brothers' accommodation went on longer, and you would have had maybe a brew house or a bakery, and you just think of everything that would support them. You'd have all those little things. It's like a little village all growing up, but they've all been quietly and signing to each other or whatever. There was one room there which is a conversation room, so there was obviously probably where the abbot took them to tell them off or something. You can see that even from here, you can see it's a little bit more detailed. It's a little bit finer carved than the rest of it. Yeah. That's because that was rebuilt. That's the front of the chapter house, and it was rebuilt in about 1272, 75. So that's like 130 years
after. So it's like contemporary Sweetheart Abbey, isn't it?
Yes, and it's been Sweetheart.
Right.
So this is the mother house of Sweetheart.
Right, okay.
So when Dundrennan ordered Sweetheart to be built, it would have been monks from here that were sent.
Right, okay.
So it's not written anywhere, but it's exactly the same time. It's not like 10 years before or 10 years after. It's exactly. So the abbot here knew that this beautiful, all new, decorative, singing and dancing abbey is being built down the road. And he says, right, I'm going to build a new chapter house, which is very dealing with business, you see. So anyone who maybe is coming in to say, we'll give you money to say prayers for us or for our saint, would be, he'd take that. So he built a beautiful new chapter house, and he also built a new carved choir screen. Choir screen went across the nave and separated the choir monks, the ones who'd taken orders from the lay brothers, and you could see remains of that choir screen through the fencing there, that metal fencing there. And there are remains, and it was far fancier, So he was quite a big advert, wasn't it? Like, stay with me. So the Reformation, so this wasn't burnt out or anything because of the Reformation. The Reformation in Scotland was not as brutal, generally speaking, as the one in England. They did they requested that Sweetheart Abbey and this one be burnt down. But the Lord, it was Lord Maxwell at the time, he protected the area. He was a very strong Catholic and he refused. And so they kind of left it. I don't know how much bandying backwards and forwards it went, but they left it. They didn't send anyone to do it, and there were still monks here, and we know there was at least 12. 8 years later, when Mary Queen of Scots came, so she wouldn't have slept if she slept here. She would not have slept in the abbey, but we believe she slept just on this corner here. By this time, this used to be all the lay brothers' accommodation. But it had been converted to the commendator's house earlier, and the commendator was something the church brought in rather than having an abbot that had taken orders and had worked their way up through the church. there was quite a bit of corruption and straying away from the path of, you know, the Cistercians by the late 1500s. So they thought we're going to have someone outside who hasn't taken orders to run it. And so the commendator's house was there. So he hadn't taken orders. He had a family, strong Catholic, with a family, wife and family, and his father was Mary Queen of Scots' right-hand man at the Battle of Langside that she was running away from. So it makes logical that he'd bring her to an abbey that still had monks in, because he was only 8 years after the Reformation. So a lot of the country was still very strong Catholic. So it wouldn't have gone down very well to have, you know, got the Queen from an abbey, and also, you know, that the son was here to protect her. She would have met her advisors in the chapter house, where we're pretty sure they would have all said, don't go to England, go back to France or raise an army or something. And the letter she wrote to Elizabeth is what Dundrennan wrote on it. But she didn't wait for the answer. So she wrote saying protect me, but she didn't wait for the answer, and she hopped on a boat over there and sailed off. Supposedly she changed her mind halfway over, but the winds were so strong and she was only on a little fishing boat that they tried to turn and they couldn't, and so then it just pushed her into Workington. So and then she never came back. So that was it. So we know that they still worshipped in the main church part until about 1730, 1740. And they still, as you can see, they still buried their loved ones in amongst the ruins. But whilst they were worshipping, the rest of it was just all being crumbled down and everyone was taking the stone. Probably a few landowners were selling it, you know, over the centuries. But we know... You went to Kirkudbright?
Yeah.
Did you go to the toll booth?
Yeah, I've been there before.
Right, so the spire is made from Dundrennan stone.
Oh, right, okay.
And the weather vane sits on a capital stone from one of the pillars from our chapter house. So, and that spire dates to 1630s, 1636. So whilst they were worshipping, everything else was being pilfered or sold off to, you know, which is quite interesting. You kind of wonder what it was like outside when they were still worshipping for like another 100 years after that spire was built. And then it was finally the Victorians. It was a landowner in the 1830s thought, I should try and save this, I should try and preserve it. So he, so he started to clear it. And then just before he died, 10 years later, it went over to the Scottish government. So about 1842, they took it on. And when you go round, just look out for the odd bit of carved stone that maybe should go over a door, or corbel that should hold a ceiling or something up, and take you the wrong place. And that would be the Victorians picking it up and thinking romantic, you know, something like that. But it does, you know, it adds to the charm.
Well, it does, doesn't it?
And yeah, and that's very, very brief history of a mighty abbey.
Yes.
And what happened to it.
That's really interesting. In some ways it's kind of a bit like now, you know, things are going on and meanwhile things are being taken and nobody wants to go to England. England's like the worst place to be at the moment. It's terrible.
Of one of the stewards who we used to have here, and he has told me that really, although they're made, you know, the pickaxes and the chisels are made out of a modern, you know, metal, they would have been really the same, exactly the same sort of thing, like a plumb line has been a plumb line, whatever, and they would have used you know, dividers and things like that in those days. They would have just been made out of, you know, wouldn't have been made out of steel, whatever. And the mallet, I know the little one, it's made out of apple wood. I mean, those would have been, I mean, it's got chunks missing from it. It would have been more rounded.
It's amazing, isn't it, what they created out of hand tools.
What he also told me, he said, well, when they were kind of designing something, you know, like your big trefoils or something there, you know, they had a room which had sort of lime or chalk or whatever on the floor. And they just drew it out to the exact proportions of what they wanted it on the floor. And then they took that from, you know, and got the design from that to the you know, to doing the stone, so it was all in the right size.
Wow.
which I hadn't known about. And he brought that mallet in the other day, but he hasn't. I wasn't here, and he hadn't told me what it was. I mean, we suppose we can kind of guess, but I want him to tell me exactly how they would have used a big mallet. You know. But yeah, he said all the chisels and things would have been. He said the only difference would be, because you see they've got a kind of lip thing coming out. He said those two at the end probably wouldn't have had that. It would have been all one piece. Yeah, and those were for marking the stone, giving it some kind of lines and things down it. But I don't know enough about them.
They must have had some strength. You would have to have some strength, wouldn't you, to
and
use things as well.
Yes,
and stamina for the period of time.
Yes,
that we had to
absolutely.
do it for. It was back-breaking work, really. Right, so let's have a look.
Let's have a wander round. We've got the grave slabs, haven't we?
Yes, the grave slabs. This is really interesting. So this is the murdered monk, and that's the replica.
Yeah.
The large figure has been identified as a Cistercian abbot holding his crozier staff. Phyllis was a crozier. His heart pierced by a small dagger, the man beneath his feet has been disemboweled and his head is tilted awkwardly. He is thought to be the abbot's murderer, hanged and drawn for his crime. It was very unusual for a woman to be buried at an abbey. This figure may represent Launch, prioress of Lincluden Priory near Dumfries. In 1389, Archibald the Grim, surprise surprise, 3rd Earl of Douglas, suppressed the priory, driving out the nuns. The two animals at her feet may be dogs, symbolising devotion. The stone is a replica. The original is displayed in the West Range. Incidentally, Archibald the Grim died around 1400-ish AD. And then this one is a loyal aristocrat. This slab marks the death in 1507 of Sir William Livingston of Coulter. He was the nephew of both Mary Fleming and Mary Livingston, close companions of Mary Queen of Scots. After she was deposed in 1567, his family remained loyal to her, and a young Sir William may have been present when she visited Dundrennan just before leaving Scotland.
Interesting, isn't it?
Isn't it?
You can see where the pillars were. There'd been quite a big space, wouldn't it?
Imagine all that time ago. This is the nave. On either side was a great arcade and a side aisle. The complete arches are in the transepts in front. That's the transepts. And then this is a view inside the Abbey church.
This is what it would have looked like.
The church was a vast building with massive pillars and a tall tower. There were many decorative stone carvings, perhaps picked out in bright colours against a white background.
That's the arched door where we came in.
That's right.
Here, number 4 survives, and the arch to the side of it. Choir screen fragments.
Yes.
That's what to look out for when we're looking around.
The nave is the west end of the church where we are at this moment in time. The lay brothers worshipped here. They were members of the abbey, but not monks. The transepts are the cross arms of the church, and they're, of course, almost intact. They were divided into chapels by wooden screens. The choir was once lined with wooden choir stalls where the monks worshipped and sang during services. The presbytery is the east end of the church, where the altar stood and mass was celebrated. The choir screen, a stone barrier separating the nave from the church's holier east end. Fabulous.
Let's have a wander round.
That's quite a nice doorway there, isn't it?
Yes.
That's a little fancier.
Probably a bit nearer, as the lady was saying.
Yes, it was built in the Gothic style.
So you've got the Norman arches at the top and the Gothic arches below.
And we've got the south aisle here, where we are
Yeah.
now. It must have been huge.
Yes, imagine what it'd been like inside it before it all been all fallen down.
And as the lady said, it was like a village.
Yeah.
They had everything there at their disposal. It is the secular doorway from the church to the cloister.
And there's a graveyard.
Yes.
I wonder who is buried here.
This is the night stair. The monks slept on the upper floor of the east range directly in front of us. They made their weary way into the church via the staircase for nighttime services. Under our tired limbs there is but a hard mat. When sleep is sweetest we must rise at bell's bidding, said Abbot Olred of Rivo, mother house of Dundrennan, circa 1160. Cistercian monks had to maintain the Opus Dei work of God, a rigorous daily cycle of 8 church services or offices, which included sung prayers at 1 a.m. and 3:30 a.m. and mass at 6 a.m.
I think they managed to get a whole minute of sleep at some point.
Yes, at some point. They must have been sleep deprived. It's not very good for the body.
No, they didn't realise that then. They thought they had other ideas.
Saint Bernard of Clairvaux, who died in 1135, was an early figurehead of the Cistercians. His contempt for sleep was so great that he rarely went to bed, a feat his fellow monks described as beyond human endurance.
Crazy.
Not good for the heart, not good for the soul. You need your sleep, it's healing.
Yes, exactly.
That's fine, isn't it? Let's have a look at some gravestones.
This big one looks interesting. Site of the altar. It's where it would have been. There's a little plaque there. Somebody had some money. Old red sandstone.
Yes. Sacred to the memory of
Helen Bradshaw.
Helen Bradshaw. I can't read it very well.
It is rather worn off. Yeah, can't even say what date is on that. It's all very well eroded. That's one that leaning against the wall is from 1841. Philip MacDonald died aged 18.
How sad. And there's one down there you can read.
That's a newer one.
In loving memory of...
1956.
Yes.
1986, 1992, so it's a new one, it's fairly recent.
What a nice setting this.
It's lovely, yeah. Look at leading down to the river, where they would have got all the stones from
Very pleasant.
when they built the place.
Going to be buried somewhere like this.
this would have been the library and the sacristy where they kept all their religious stuff.
Yeah. Yes, we learned about the sacristy yesterday.
Exactly.
Of course, meaning sacred. There's nice benches, you can sit them on the wall, walking with the law. This paved walkway provided a route between the Abbey's domestic buildings and a space for reading and contemplation. We seem to spend most of the time reading and contemplating.
Yeah, he's contemplating.
He is, isn't he?
And he's probably contemplating as well.
The cloister garden behind you may have been planted with medicinal herbs and flowers, perhaps with a tree at the centre. It symbolised the heavenly paradise secluded from the earthly realm. The walkway was protected by a sloping roof, supported on narrow pillars. The chapter house door and windows to your right are surviving examples of the superb stone carving that once decorated many features of the abbey.
You can see the stones where the roof was supported.
Yes.
There's 3 of them surviving.
Wow, look at this, this is gorgeous. I'm going to take pictures of this. Stunning.
This is chapter house.
Yes. With some carvings on. This was obviously when they decided to be a little bit more fanciful, because the Cistercian buildings were supposed to be very plain, but you can see there's a little bit more fanciful carvings round the windows.
This is where they'd all meet.
It was the most important building in the abbey. The entire chapter or body of monks would meet here every morning. It was a beautiful space formed from 12 vaults supported on 6 pillars. The windows are carved with simple and delicate motifs. At these daily meetings there would be readings from the Rule of St. Benedict. This was a code of conduct for monastic life. Its central instruction was oral and oral, meaning pray and work. Chapter meetings were also used to deal with the Abbey's administrative business, to hear confessions of sin and to administer discipline.
So this is where they gave bollockings.
This is it.
Monastic bollockings.
I wonder they printed it in a "You're getting a bollocking."
They might have done. Do you think they bollocked? They probably would have bollocked in Latin, wouldn't they?
Yes. I'm sorry about that.
They probably put the offending brother over the abbot's knee and gave him a good spanking, probably. Shall we have a wander inside? Late 13th century.
Contemporary with Archibald the Green.
Yeah. This is the inner parlour, conversation room.
And this is where the monks would have received their tellings off.
This is the bollocking room. You're a naughty boy, don't do it again. lost buildings of the South Range. Abbey's domestic buildings, these would have been. Monk's dormitory, which would have been leading off from the tower, from the transept, where they would have had their 5 minutes of sleep. Lay Brothers dormitory would have been along here, behind us. The kitchen looks like where we're standing, and then the refectory, which is looks like the space right in front of us.
Originally this ran along the side of the cloister.
The gap in the wall in the entrance, and the tree is right in the middle of it. And the raised grounds, probably the rubble from it. Then number 5,
the warming
room, where they had a chance to warm up for a few seconds in between prayers, and then the day room where they did some more meditation, contemplation and silent study, which is, and then to the back is the novices' day room and the latrines, overlying a great drain, so all their poos went into the burn. So even monks went to the toilet. Loose stones, which have been carefully catalogued and labelled and arranged in order. So let's have a look in the barn. This is a storeroom for recovered pieces of stonework. That's the corbel of the bits that stick out that support timbers. I think I was just calling them sticky out bits before then.
Very interesting.
Pieces of column.
It's made up from a number of sections placed one on top of the other, with a broad base at the bottom and a capital at the top. The capital is often the most ornate part, sometimes splayed out to support the stonework above. 2 capitals and 1 base are displayed here. Each has been ingeniously designed to key into the surrounding stonework where it was incorporated. The outward facing surfaces include various kinds of decorative carving.
Heraldic panels.
The simple carving depicts the saltire. The Cross of St Andrew, patron saint of Scotland. Abbeys in the south of Scotland were often embroiled in border warfare, and their allegiance sometimes had to be flexible. At one point, the monks of Melrose Abbey in the Scottish borders declared themselves to be English. And in fact, the Scottish borders is one of the most haunted territory in the United Kingdom, and especially around Northumberland. That whole area is really haunted because of what happened during the Wars of Independence in particular. There were some very fierce and bloody battles.
It's a millstone.
Yes, this is the original effigy.
So they made their own bread here.
Yes, they did. This is the original effigy. This sculpted figure was found in the chapter house, where it was laid flat over a tomb. It probably depicts a former abbot of Dundrennan. His identity is unknown. A dagger is shown on his chest, and at his feet lies a much smaller figure whose belly seems to be spilling intestines. This may represent an assassin who murdered the abbot and then suffered a cruel punishment. The replica is displayed at the west end of the Abbey Church, and we saw that earlier. This is the original. It's fine work. And this has all been carved by stone, thick stone. But even all this time on, look at all the intricate detail. Tomb slabs. 2 fragments of carved slabs, each of which would have been laid flat over a tomb. The smaller one features Lombardic lettering. This one here. A decorative writing style, sometimes used on medieval documents. The larger fragment also has an inscription, which is no longer legible. At its centre is a cross on a stepped Calvary, which is a stylised representation of the hill where Jesus was crucified. And then this is drainage channel.
Guttering.
At Melrose Abbey, 35 miles west of Dundrennan, an elaborate system of pipes has survived as evidence of sophisticated medieval plumbing.
More heraldic panels.
This panel may have come from a lintel, the horizontal bar framing the top or bottom of a doorway or window. The 3 coats of arms displayed on it are, left to right, Stuart, Balliol and MacLellan of Bonnie. The Balliols were lords of Galloway, and in 1292 Lord John became King of Scots. The Stuarts later became Scotland's most enduring royal dynasty from 1371 until 1714. The MacLellans were powerful landholders in the Galloway region. Well, thanks for joining us on this little mooch around Dundrennan Abbey. I hope you found it interesting and informative. We've really enjoyed looking around and hearing a few of the fascinating stories associated with this ancient place. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, please comment. Would you visit a place like this? What do you think of the whole history of it? Please share, please subscribe, hit the old notification bell, ding 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 ding, and I will see you again soon for the next one. Until then, bye for now.